What is the weirdest thing you've heard or had happen to you while using a public restroom? When I was a kid, my parents worked in a university as professors, and I would go to their offices after school until they finished work and we would go home. Importantly, the men's and women's bathrooms were right next to each other, and they had the type of ceilings which are tiles resting on a grid-type metal grid. One day, I was about 10 years old, I went to the bathroom. I was sitting on the toilet in the stall and for some reason looked up, directly over my head. There was a guy looking down at me. He had climbed up from the men's side, removed the ceiling tiles, and was peeping at the female college students as they went to the bathroom. Apparently, I was the first person that looked up.
We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description.
Story 2. When I was younger, high school age, I'd been constipated for a few days. I got the urge while I was in the mall and went to the bathroom. It was empty when I got there and was having a rough time pushing this meteorite out. Then I hear some people walk in, a man and a woman talking. Then they started making out. Now, I was a pretty shy kid, so I tried hard not to make a noise. Next thing I know, I can see through the crack in the stall that the girl is taking off her pants. I guess it escalated to the point where I was getting nervous, which caused the giant crap I was trying to take to rocket out. They, of course, noticed, and she says, "Oh crap, someone's in here." Then they rushed out. Story 3. This is a story my uncle told me about one of his first experiences as an architect in Australia after moving there from Canada. He was called into a meeting with a bunch of other people, and in the meeting they got discussing the toilets in the commercial building they were designing, and someone asked if they wanted to run hot water to the toilets. "Why would people want to run hot water to the toilets?" my uncle asked. A bunch of people looked slightly confused at my uncle's question, and his new coworker answers, "So that people's hands don't get cold when they're washing them? Like this should be obvious." "People are washing their hands in the toilet?" my uncle asks. Yes? He was not aware that Australians refer to the whole room as the toilet. So they were wanting to run hot water to the bathroom so that people would have warm water to wash their hands with. He got a lot of weird looks that day, and I'm pretty sure everyone probably avoided shaking his hand. Story 4. I went into a Target to take a pee. After relieving myself, it was a photo finish, I turned to wash my hands. In the sink, there was a goldfish in a plastic bag. Now, Target does not sell fish, so it was kind of odd, to say the least. I could tell that there was a person in one of these stalls. Concerned that this goldfish had been abandoned, I nervously asked the dude in the stall if this was his fish in the sink. A deep voice boomed back at me, "What?" I repeated my question. "Is this your fish in the sink?" There was a long pause, as if the Target pooper was trying to understand my question. He finally replied, "Nah man, that ain't my fish." So I took it home. Had to buy a whole setup, tank, filter, and everything. And that's the story of how I rescued a goldfish from a Target bathroom. People always talk about cats choosing their owners. This is the first I have ever heard and probably will ever hear of a goldfish choosing its owner. Story 5. My sister always believed in the importance of teaching her son, even from a young age, to use the correct terminology for genitalia. There was no, "That's your pee-pee," or "Those are your privates." It was always, "That is your penis." So the day before Christmas Eve, we were doing some last-minute shopping. My nephew was mostly potty trained at this point, but still wore a diaper just in case. She goes off to do some shopping and I take him to the washroom for a change, as he has had an accident. As I'm wiping him clean, he screams bloody murder in a washroom full of people. "Auntie, don't touch my..." I was frickin' mortified, worrying that people are going to think that I was inappropriate with him. So I say loudly yet kindly, "We have to make sure you're clean." I've never been more embarrassed in my life than when I was walking out of that stall. And to top it off, I was like 19, but definitely looked younger. Story 6. Sitting on the toilet in a Denny's bathroom. The large plastic toilet paper holder was just missing the cover, so when I pulled on the toilet paper roll, it fell off and rolled perfectly under the stall wall, and fell over right behind the feet of a man standing at the urinal next door. The man must have seen it because I instantly hear him say, "Oh, I got it." "Thanks," I said, expecting him to finish his business, then help me out. What I did not expect was for him to bend down and pick it up right then and there, but not how one normally bends down. I can guarantee he was midstream when he leaned over backwards like frickin' Neo in the Matrix. I see his legs bend forward and then see his hand reaching down behind him. He bends over far enough to grab the roll, stream still going. It was a urinal with water in the base so I could hear it. He grabs it and perfectly rolls it back over to me. Then he gives me a thumbs up and then stands back up. unfrickin' real. Story 7. I was out drinking one evening. Went to go to the bathroom and there were 3 ladies blocking the guy's bathroom. They told me I couldn't go in. It was the only bathroom in the place and I had to pee bad. I waited about 20 seconds and then pushed past them. As I walk in there is one dude at the end of the line of urinals with his dong out, not facing a urinal. He's giving it a pep talk, saying things like, "Come on, bud, you can do it," and "Don't let me down again." I take quite a long pee and he keeps talking to his dong the entire time. I exited the restroom and told my buddy what happened. He had to see it for himself, so he went to the restroom. Same girls outside trying to stop him and same dude in there still trying to sweet talk his wang into doing something. Story 8. Not necessarily a public restroom, but I worked at a financial company with over 2,000 people in one office. There are around 10 different bathrooms in the building, all with multiple stalls/urinals. Anyway, I was on my break and ran to the bathroom to relieve myself. I saw someone in one of the stalls because feet, and doors were closed. As I walk up to the urinal, I hear the guy sneeze. I say, "Bless you," like people do for some reason. Guy in the stall hits me back with, "That wasn't a sneeze." I just left and went to a different bathroom. Story 9. I was in a stall at work browsing Reddit after using the toilet and just killing time until my break was over, when what I can only tell was a somewhat older man shuffled his way over to the stall next to mine. He then lets out a thunderous fart and sits on the toilet and moans out, "Oh dear God, it's the end of days." I immediately put myself together and left the restroom before I heard any more. Story 10. Worked for a really large company and decided to use the restroom near the boardroom, more private. When I walked in, one of our board members is at a urinal wearing a suit and jacket, with his pants and undies dropped all the way to the ground. Apparently, that is how this 70-year-old man has peed his entire life. Just odd. Story 11. I was in the bathroom of a movie theater peeing in a urinal, when I felt something tug on my shirt. I turned around and there was this little kid, had to be younger than 5. He asked if I could hold him up so that he can pee in the urinal next. We are the only ones in the bathroom and I'm peeing hard because I just got out of a movie. I had such a dad moment though because I just said, "Ask your mom." He said okay and skipped out of the bathroom. I didn't even wash my hands. I just wanted to be out of there before a Dateline camera crew showed up. Story 12. Was using the urinal in the Port Authority men's room when some random guy walks up behind me and says in a raspy voice, "Hey kid, I like your hair." Still peeing, I turn around and say, "Thanks." He says, "You like pineapples?" Caught off guard, I ask, "What? Pineapple?" At this point, I'm zipping my pants up and starting to turn around to face him. He then points to underneath the wall of the first bathroom stall to a plastic bag, like one you'd get from the liquor store. He says, "Yeah, you want to buy one? I got one right there. It's delicious." Sure enough, there's a black plastic bag with a pineapple sticking out of it on the floor of the Port Authority men's room. I told him I was allergic to pineapple. He seemed shocked and, quite frankly, really sad that I couldn't eat his delicious pineapple. And then we parted ways. Story 13. At a gay bar. Me, a lesbian, goes looking for the women's bathroom. No luck. Directions unclear. Not my language. Okay, men's room it is. Half a dozen urinals in front of half a dozen stalls. First stall, no door. Second stall, broken door. Third stall, dirty AF, and so on. Until I find one that closes, but does not lock. Who cares? Men here don't care for my junk. Time to pee. And I can hold the door with my hand anyway. Middle of my business, 2 pints of beer leaving my body, someone yanks the door open. And here it is. A 6'3", huge man, muscle and fat, dressed up as a Valkyrie. Helmet, horns, sword, but with a floral granny nightgown underneath, and he just stops and stares at me. And I'm just there, peeing and staring open-mouthed at this giant. As soon as the pee stops, he just says, "Well, you done?" I nod, wipe, and guys, he was already sitting down on the toilet as I was yanking my pants up. And he told me to close the stall door as I went out. Story 14. Not me, but it happened to my son. He was about 4, maybe 5 at the time. We were on vacation in San Francisco, California. We were on Fisherman's Wharf, and my son and I went in to use the restroom. It was a cool and rainy day and the tile floors were wet. We go in a stall so he could pee as all the urinals were taller than him. So he drops trow and hikes up his shirt and jacket and saddles up to the toilet and he starts peeing. Well, he's on his tippy toes and all of a sudden, he is head first in the toilet. He slipped and nosedived into the toilet. He was soaked head to waist. I get him out of the toilet and I'm struggling so hard not to laugh. I get him out and strip his shirt and jacket off of him and tell him to put them in the trash, and then wash and dry him off. I take my jacket and put it on him. He's crying and I'm dying from laughter inside. We get out of the bathroom and head to the nearest store to get him a new shirt and jacket. Then find my wife and daughter, who proceed to ask why he was in all new clothes. Then once I tell them, they start laughing. He still hates when I bring up the time he fell into the toilet at Fisherman's Wharf. Story 15. I walked into the bathroom at a hospital food court, was in dire need to relieve myself. As I walked in, I heard some thumping from one of the stalls, like someone was gently pounding on the stall walls. Then I saw 2 pairs of shoes, one in front of the other, under the closed stall door. Due to my need to empty my bladder, I decided to ignore what I saw and just take care of business. As I was walking out, the stall door opened, and one of the food court employees came out alone. He had been changing into his uniform on his way to work, including his shoes. I had actually thought it was 2 guys banging in the stall. He must have thought I was crazy as I walked out of the bathroom laughing hysterically to myself. Story 16. I was at a goth club and I was nauseous because I drank too much gin and tonic. So I went to the bathroom to take a crap. My stomach hurt, so I was rubbing my belly like a cartoon character as I waited for a stall to open. A gay Asian guy in bondage gear, not odd for the location, walked up to me and said, "Oh honey, stomach ulcers?" and gave me a hug and patted my back. I didn't have a stomach ulcer, but I was very compelled to hug back because I appreciated the sympathy. He then walked off without saying anything else. Seemed like a good guy. Story 17. My parents taught me about puberty and banging long before they should have, and corrupted me from a very young age. When I was 6 years old, my friend and I entered a public bathroom at a pizza place, and she said, "Hey, do you want to go in the same stall as me?" And me, wanting to come up with a solid excuse to not go into the bathroom with her, said, "No, our boobies are almost full grown." Don't ask me why I said that. We were 6. The woman who was behind us in line started cracking up so loud that she couldn't control herself, and just ran out of the bathroom laughing. So this is kind of tangential, but I've always wondered, it's like, how early is too early? Like, I don't know. Because there's part of my rational brain that's like, oh yes, giving children information can't possibly be bad. But then there's the understanding of the psychology of it and developmental stages, and it's like, well, actually, yes, it can be. So, if I had to guess, 6? Probably too early. But this is hilarious, so you know what? The potential psychological damage was worth the funny. Story 18. It was in my small college town somewhere around 2015. It was Halloween and I was stumbling back towards my dorm, more than slightly intoxicated, when I very urgently needed to pee. I'm not one for peeing in public, so I started looking around for places I could stop. There was still a bar open on the main strip I had to walk past, so I decided to shuffle in and try to get into the bathroom before a staff member could ask me to buy something. It was empty inside. People had mostly headed off to their separate Halloween parties. I somehow made it to the bathroom without incident, but immediately paused in place. Inside the bathroom were 4 men in hooded robes, standing silently and facing each other. I'm internally a little weirded out, but also laughing because Halloween shenanigans, I'm sure. But then they all start moving as though animated at once. One starts washing his hands for way longer than necessary. One is just drying his hands for way longer than necessary. And I'm relatively sure that guy's hands were never wet in the first place. One of them is holding an M&M wrapper and he's peeling it into small pieces, fitting them to the inside of a nearby urinal, and placing others in his pocket. He then hands me one of the torn pieces while asking me, "Do you fear death, my dude?" This guy's delivery was simultaneously one of the most hilarious and eerie things I've ever heard. Something about his inflection upwards on the "my dude" combined with the stone-cold way the sentence began, I was unsure how to respond. I think I told him something like, "Hard to say, I've never almost died." He nodded as though my words were profound and affecting. They then all returned to their robotic, strange bathroom rituals, not quite ever progressing in their respective tasks. I washed my hands, dried them, and walked out before any one of the men had finished whatever it was they seemed to be doing. The bathroom door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly I'm back in the sleepy bar ambience. Counters being wiped and chair stacking was beginning. I shuffled out and away into the Halloween night, with no clear idea what the hell just happened. I'm sure they were just kids having some Halloween fun, and they were probably on some kind of mild drugs. Whatever it was, I still remember it these several years later. Story 19. I walked into a public bathroom just as my friend started calling me. I pull out my phone and say, "What's up, man?" and hear a strange voice behind the stall go, "Just taking a crap." I said my friend's name several times, trying to hint to the dude taking a crap that I'm not talking to him. Instead, the dude in the bathroom keeps insisting that that's not his name. I left without doing my business. Story 20. One time I was peeing at a music venue, and this dude came up next to me taking a mean piss with a loud, audible sigh of relief. He looked at me and said, "The only thing that makes you moan more than nutting is a good pee, am I right?" Followed by, "I'm glad you laughed. I rarely tell that joke because I've gotten my butt kicked a few times from it. But the 7 out of 10 times it went well makes it worth it. Guess he must really like his odds." Story 21. During the return drive home from a summer vacation, we stop at a gas station and use the restroom to buy snacks and whatnot. I go to do my business and I open the door, and there's a guy standing up using the toilet which had no stall around it. What I didn't know in the moment is the guy just didn't lock the door of a bigger single-person bathroom with both a toilet and a urinal. I see a urinal and think, let me run to that, since I'm now in fight or flight mode. So there I am peeing as the guy leaves. I leave and apparently his wife was waiting outside, because they meet and then go on about their day. Basically, I walked in on a guy, but it was his fault since he didn't lock the door. Story 22. It was the middle of the day, but it was at a casino. I was at the urinal. There was a guy a couple of urinals away that was obviously drunk. Nothing too crazy, just a lot of swaying. He may have lowered his pants, which would also be crazy. He suddenly got the urge to vomit, so he spun around to puke in a toilet. Vomit and urine started erupting as the guy got tangled up in his pants and fell over. He didn't get knocked out or anything though. As I walked out, I thought, I really hope that guy has a room here and I really hope no one is waiting for him outside the bathroom. Like a wife. Sneak back to the room, shower, burn your clothes, and hit the sack. Story 23. I was at a festival in NSW a few years ago, and saw the wildest thing at one of the portable troughs. That counts as a public restroom, right? It was right at the end of the night, just after the last band had played. So my mate and I went to pee. As we did, some poor soul's hat had fallen into the trough. Probably a few hours prior to us being there, it was drenched. So we thought, hey, a target, and started aiming at it. As we do, we hear some bloke very happily yelling, making friends, saying good day to everyone as he made his way over to the trough. Clearly very, very high. I'm guessing MDMA. He walks in, stands between me and my mate, lets out a, "Good day, boys, how are we?" and throws his arms over our shoulders. Bit weird because we had our dongs out, but ultimately a bit of a harmless, spontaneous mateship. Until he notices the hat that we were still in the process of peeing on. He glances at it for just a second and then yells, "Frick yeah, free hat!" before slapping through my pee trail, grabbing it and slapping it on his head with the most unforgettable squelch I will ever hear. He looks at me and stares me dead in the eyes, while beads of literal pee begin to roll down his forehead, and he lets out what can only be described as SpongeBob's laugh, if SpongeBob had been on a 4-day bender. Then he just walked off into the crowd. My mate and I stood laughing in shock for a few minutes before we could process what the hell we just saw. Funniest part was that he didn't even pee. I think he was just too cooked and distracted by his newfound piece of attire. God bless you, piss hat man, wherever you may be.